Backseat cinema sex with my lodger. Milfs Unprotected 6. Breeding Erotica. MILF Erotica. Written by Tori Westwood. Narrated by Edie Olliver. Backseat cinema sex with my lodger. Milfs Unprotected 6. The hype had really built for the 6th film in the franchise, and my lodger Kyle had been an avid fan for years. At 18, he'd grown up with the characters, and while I couldn't exactly see the appeal in their fantastical journeys, I knew Kyle liked it, and that was all that mattered. For his 19th birthday, I'd bought 2 tickets in premiere seating so that he could experience the film in as much comfort as possible. Excited? I asked as we walked into the foyer of the cinema. Of course, Kyle said. I've been waiting years for this. I smiled. It was intoxicating to see him enamored by something. I'm just gonna grab some popcorn. Despite the fact this was one of the movie's opening days, the cinema didn't exactly look packed out. I think there must have been some fatigue with the franchise by now, but I'd expected more people to come out and support. This was no more apparent than when we headed into the cinema, finding the room decidedly empty. As Kyle sidled down the back row, clutching his popcorn, he looked back to me confused. Where is everyone? I shrugged. Enjoy it, honey. Not often we get such an empty cinema. Maybe they'll come in later. We sat in the comfy leather seats beside each other, using the buttons to manipulate them into the most comfortable spot possible. Kyle set the popcorn on his lap, and I started reaching over to grab some as the adverts and trailers started to play in front of us. Several more people entered the theater, but by the time the opening credits started, the back 2 rows of the cinema were empty. It seemed no one was willing to pay any more than necessary for this installment. Regardless, the iconic theme tune flared up and Kyle's face blossomed into a wide smile. I couldn't help but smile back, lingering on his expression for a moment before turning my attention to the opening scene that began with a bang. For the next few minutes, I was enraptured, reveling in the big screen experience and idly moving my hand to Kyle's lap for repeated mouthfuls of popcorn. But it didn't take long for all the pomp and spectacle to wear thin, and soon the pair of us were halfway through a relatively unspectacular movie. Each time I took a glance at Kyle, he seemed less and less interested. What had started as the calendar event of the year had slowly transformed into disappointment. Why would they even do that? Kyle protested finally, holding his hand up to the screen as if to plead with its direction. They've only just met. It makes no sense. I know, honey, I offered, rubbing his forearm to try to placate him. I took another handful of popcorn as the scene faded out and a new one came in. On the screen was one of the main female characters of the franchise, all grown up and dressed in one of the most revealing outfits I've ever known. That's better, Kyle said, and I looked over to see his eyes sparkling. Kyle, I hissed, slapping his thigh playfully. Close your eyes, Mrs. Anderson, he laughed. I turned away to roll my eyes, looking back to the screen as the bare-chested male lead decided to join in with the fun. This is getting better, I whispered, and Kyle looked across to smile. See? I wriggled in my seat and watched the pecs of the hero bounce as he walked towards his love interest. Kyle leaned forward on his seat and adjusted himself. It was clearly having an effect on him, and I wondered how the rest of the mostly male audience felt. I mean, this was gold bikini territory, if you know what I mean. My hand moved across the seats as I made for the popcorn, plunging down into the bucket and finding its fabric base empty. My hand scrambled around inside, noting the raised hard cylinder that stretched across the diameter. It felt much stranger than expected. I managed to drag my eyes away from the screen long enough to take a look at what I was touching. Instead of being deep inside the bucket, my hand was targeted right down.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?